Welcome back to The Mind, a podcast series by the Ramakrishna Vedanta Centre, New Zealand. A conversation at the meeting point of modern science and the contemplative traditions of yoga and Vedanta. I'm Rama, your host. Last time, the group learned to steady the radar, manas, the scanning mind. Today, they meet the worker that takes what the radar brings and decides what it means, Buddhi, the discerning, deciding intelligence. The one that hears a sound in the dark and concludes, the wind, or a footstep. And that single decision, the group will discover, shapes how you feel far more than the event ever did, which carries a startling implication. Change the meaning, and you change the suffering, without changing a single fact. This is also, it turns out, exactly where modern therapy does its work. Buddhi, determination, discernment, and meaning. Let's join them. The same room. Morning light this time. They've met earlier than usual. There's a notable calm. The face-down phones are already on the side table before Swamiji arrives.
2 quiet minutes before the phone. Did anyone manage it?
I did. More days than I expected. And the strange thing, it wasn't the 2 minutes that mattered most. It was that, later in the day, I'd sometimes catch my mind spinning and think, this is just the radar, and come back. Like the morning thing trained a reflex.
That's abhyasa, doing exactly what it does, Kai. The reflex to return. Sarah?
One thing at a time. Phone in the other room. Hard. But here's what surprised me. Once I was less scattered, I started noticing my own commentary. Like, my son comes home quiet and instantly there's a voice going, he's upset, something's wrong, did something happen at school? A whole story in a second. I never used to catch it.
Sarah, you've just walked us straight into today's lesson. James, did you find the same?
Exactly the same. Camera at the door, yes, but then I noticed how fast I label things. A kid yawns and I've already decided, they're bored, I'm boring them. Half a second, no evidence.
So once the radar steadies, you both started to see the next worker at work. The one that takes what manas brings and instantly decides what it means. He's upset. They're bored. Something's wrong. That worker is Buddhi, the decider. And here is the claim I want to prove to you today. The meaning Buddhi assigns hurts you far more than the event itself. Get hold of that, and an enormous amount of suffering becomes workable. Let me start with a sound in the dark. You're half asleep, and you hear a creak downstairs. Manas just registers it, a sound. It wavers. What was that? Then Buddhi steps in and decides. Sarah, 2 ways it could decide?
It's just the house settling, or someone's broken in.
Same creak. Identical sound waves. Now, in the first case, what does your body do?
Nothing. Roll over, go back to sleep.
And the second?
Heart pounding, sitting bolt upright, terrified.
The sound never changed. The terror, or the calm, came entirely from Buddhi's decision about what it meant. That's the whole principle, and it scales all the way up. A friend says something ambiguous. Buddhi decides she was teasing or she was being cruel. And a friendship is warmed or wounded for years on that one call. You lose a job, Buddhi decides, I'm finished. Or, this is painful but something can come of it. And your entire next year bends around which meaning you chose.
So Buddhi is doing 3 things basically. Deciding what it is, what it means, and what to do.
Exactly those 3. Kai, resolve, interpret, direct. And the middle one, the meaning, is where the emotional weight lives. James, your yawning student, walk it through.
Manas, a student yawned. Buddhi, they're bored, I'm failing. And then the feeling, the sting, the defensiveness, All of it hangs off that interpretation, not the yawn.
And had Buddhi decided poor kid was up late, what happens to the sting?
Gone. There's no sting. Maybe even some sympathy.
Same yawn. Two completely different inner worlds, built entirely by Buddhi. This is why two people sit through the identical meeting and walk out into different realities. Their Buddhi assigned different meanings. The event is rarely the problem. The meaning is.
You called Buddhi the charioteer a few weeks back. Can we come back to that? It stuck with me.
Gladly, James, because this is Buddhi's other role. It doesn't just assign meaning, it governs the whole system. Remember the chariot from the Kathopanishad. The body is the chariot, the senses are the horses, Manas is the reins, and Buddhi is the charioteer. The one who sees the road, holds the reins, knows the destination. The self is the rider, the master, for whom the whole journey exists. Now, who keeps the horses on the road?
The charioteer. Through the reins.
So, when Buddhi is clear and alert, reins firm, horses governed, the journey goes where it's meant to. Manas steadies, the senses are engaged but not enslaved. Ahankara reacts proportionately, memory stores clean impressions. But when the charioteer is distracted or asleep, reins slack, the horses bolt toward whatever catches their eye, and the rider is dragged along helplessly. That's why the tradition puts Buddhi, not the others, in the driver's seat. It's the governing worker. Clear the charioteer, and the whole system falls into order behind it.
But here's my honest problem. My Buddhi is not reliable. Some days I think clearly, other days I make terrible calls about the exact same kind of situation. If it's the governing intelligence, why is it so inconsistent?
One of the best questions in the whole course, Kai, and the tradition has a precise answer. Buddhi isn't a fixed lens. Its clarity changes, and it moves between three conditions, the three gunas. Picture Buddhi as a lake reflecting the moon. When the water is still, that's sattva, clarity. The reflection is perfect. Discrimination is sharp. Judgment is wise. When the water is whipped up by wind, that's rajas, agitation and desire. The reflection fragments. You're still clever, even strategic, but the wanting bends every meaning toward what you crave. That's the day you know the right call and make the wrong one anyway. And when the water is dark and muddy, that's tamas, dullness. There's no reflection at all. You can't think, can't decide, can't care. Apathy, fog, bad judgment that doesn't even register as bad.
So my good days and bad days aren't random, they're which state the lake is in.
Exactly. And here's why that's good news rather than bad. You can influence the lake. The things the traditions are forever recommending, regular rhythm, decent sleep, simple food, good company, a little meditation, not doom scrolling at midnight. They're not moralizing. They're all ways of settling the water, raising sattva, so the charioteer wakes up and the reflection clears. Sarah, there's a deeply kind version of this in one of Vivekananda's images.
Go on.
He said every person is like a glass globe with the same pure light burning at the center. What differs between us isn't the light, it's the glass. How thick, how clouded, how colored. A thick, smudged glass dims the light, a clear one lets it pour through. So the differences between people in wisdom or judgment aren't differences in their deepest worth. They're differences in the clarity of the instrument. And the instrument can be cleaned. Nobody is beyond hope. That's the promise under all of this.
That's such a gentler way to see a struggling child or a struggling self. Not broken, just the glass needs clearing.
That's precisely the shift, Sarah. Same light in your son on his worst day as his best, only the glass changed.
This is the point where I'd normally expect science and the old teaching to part ways, but I have a feeling you're about to tell me they don't.
You're learning my moves, Kai. They converge almost word for word. Modern cognitive therapy, CBT, is built on one core discovery from decades of clinical work. It is not events that disturb us, but the interpretations we place on them. Sit with that. It's the Buddhi principle, rediscovered in a clinic. And CBT even catalogues the typical ways Buddhi misassigns meaning. You'll all recognize these. Catastrophizing. If I fail this test, my whole life is over. Sarah, that one?
That's me about my children at 2 a.m., word for word.
Black and white thinking. Either I'm perfect or I'm worthless. No middle. Kai, I suspect you can relate.
Yeah, that's the engine of the whole am I enough thing. There's no setting between brilliant and rubbish.
Personalizing. They didn't say hello, they must dislike me, when they simply didn't see you. Mind reading. Everyone in this room is judging me. And overgeneralizing. This always happens to me. James, the yawning student, lives in here somewhere.
This class always switches off on me. Overgeneralizing. From one yawn.
Now here's the key point for today. Notice that none of these are failures of attention. Manas did its job. It received the input cleanly. They're all failures of interpretation. They're Buddhi-level distortions. And that tells you exactly where to work. You don't need more focus. You need to catch the automatic meaning, question whether it's actually true, and choose a truer one. That move, and it's the heart of CBT, is, in our language, simply refining the charioteer, cleaning the glass, training Buddhi to see the road as it really is.
So when a therapist asks, what's the evidence for that thought, that's literally Buddhi training.
Literally. Where's the evidence? What's another way to read this? What would you tell a friend who thought this? Every one of those is a tool for clearing Buddhist reflection. And the contemplative traditions take it one crucial step further than the clinic usually does. They train Buddhi to make the deepest discrimination of all, what's called viveka, between the real and the unreal, between you and the passing states you keep mistaking for you. The classic image. At dusk, you see a snake on the path and freeze in terror. Then someone brings a lamp, and it's a coiled rope. The fear was total, and totally based on a misreading. Viveka is the lamp. It doesn't just swap a bad interpretation for a better one. It shows you that the suffering itself was a formation appearing in awareness, real as an experience, but not the final truth of who you are.
And there's a story you mentioned you'd tell about the scientist?
Ah, Humphrey Davy. A real episode, last century before last. A chemist, doing an experiment with what we now call laughing gas. A tube broke, he breathed it in, and stood frozen for a few moments. When he came round, he told his class he had directly perceived that the whole world is made of ideas. Now, I tell it not as mysticism, but as illustration. When the gas quieted the grossest, heaviest layers of his processing, Buddhi briefly reflected at a subtler level, and what it saw was that the solid material world is a partial reading, the one Buddhi gives at its densest. Clear the instrument further, and subtler layers of reality become visible. The everyday solid world isn't a lie, it's just not the whole picture. The clearer the glass, the more of the light comes through.
So the solid world is Buddhist low-resolution setting.
Beautifully put, Kai. And most of us live our whole lives on the low setting, never suspecting there's a dial. This week, One practice, and it follows naturally from last week's steadiness. When a feeling spikes, pause and find the verdict Buddhi just passed. Not the event, the meaning. He's upset, and it's my fault. They're bored. I'm failing. I'm finished. Write it down if you can. Then ask 3 gentle questions. Is that actually true? What else could it mean? What would I tell a friend who believed it? You're not forcing a sunny lie, you're cleaning the glass. Sarah, when your son comes home quiet and the story starts, something's wrong, I've failed him, catch the verdict. Then ask your 3 questions. Could be he's just tired. Could be nothing to do with me. I'd tell a friend not to leap. Then, maybe, simply ask him, gathering evidence instead of trusting the verdict.
Catch the verdict, ask the 3 questions, then check reality. I do leap, and it frightens the kids more than the thing itself.
James, this class always switches off. When it fires, catch it as a verdict, not a fact. Overgeneralizing from a yawn. Ask, is it true? Always? What's another read? And notice whether teaching from, let me re-engage them, lands better than teaching from, they've rejected me.
Treat the thought as a hypothesis, not a verdict. That's a teacher's instinct anyway. I just never turned it on myself.
And Kai, your black and white dial. When you hit, I'm rubbish at this, catch it as a Buddhi distortion, not the truth, and deliberately find the middle. I struggled with this part today. Specific, true, and survivable. That's viveka in training wheels, separating a passing state from the whole of you.
Find the middle setting. Given my mind only has 2 settings right now, that's the work.
That is the work, Kai, and it's the most consequential work there is, because the charioteer steers everything. Tell me next time what verdicts you caught. Because each verdict, true or false, doesn't just pass, it leaves a trace and sinks into memory, where it quietly shapes the next reading. And memory, chitta, is exactly where we go next.
And that's the decider, the worker whose interpretation, far more than the event itself, shapes how you feel, which is why catching the verdict and gently questioning it can change so much. Clear the charioteer, and the whole system falls into order behind it. Next time, we follow every verdict to where it goes to live, chitta, the memory field. And to go deeper, the full Lesson 2.5 is available in the course Beginners, Conversations on the Mind in the Light of Modern and Spiritual Sciences on the Ramakrishna Vedanta Center's website, www.vedanta.nz. It is also available as an app on Google Play and the Apple App Store by searching for Vedanta NZ. Until then, be gentle with your mind.